I'm Mark.
And I'm Josh.
And this is Alter Ego Comics TV, episode number 182. Back with our recommendations for this week's best comics, as well as a Halloween-themed top 5 list. All kinds of cool stuff going on in the world of comics. There were all these announcements that came out of New York Comic Con last week. I was fortunate enough to attend and got a chance to meet some of my favorite comic book creators and got to see the Avengers 2 trailer. It's awesome. Spoiler, it's awesome.
I got to work at the store.
Yes. But it's the perks of being the boss. So, anyway, if any of you went, chime in the comments below. Let us know what you thought of the event. They just announced this week that it is now the largest North American Comic-Con, surpassing San Diego by about 20,000 people. So 150,000 people at New York Comic-Con. 150,000 unique ticket sales is what they said. For those of you that have been to San Diego and or New York Comic-Con, I would like to see a little more integration between the city and the convention itself. I think San Diego does that really well by getting surrounding restaurants and businesses involved. New York is trying, but I think because it's more spread out, it's proven to be an uphill battle. I actually just read an interview today with the organizer of the convention, and that's something that they're trying to work on for next year. So all in all, I thought it was a great show, very well organized. Lots of great guests, lots of fans. When I see a show like this, it just blows me away that there are the number of people that are interested in comics and pop culture, and a lot of it may be the pop culture side and not so much the comics, but there were people of all walks of life that knew about Saga and Sex Criminals and more the indie stuff, but also they were fans of mainstream, Marvel and DC and licensed properties and things like that, but all kinds of crazy cool stuff.
I think it's pop vinyls, not pop culture.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah,
about.
I don't know if any of you buy Funko pop vinyl stuff. And if you're watching this locally, obviously you know that we have a fairly large selection of pop vinyls in the shop. But those were the items that people were willing to stand in line for and possibly ship someone for. There were multiple vendors selling exclusive pop vinyls, but Toy Tokyo seemed to be the one that had the biggest line, and it was nuts. It was crazy. There were more people in line for pop exclusives than, I don't know, William Shatner. And then autographs with William Shatner. I don't know. But anyway, let's get to this week. We've got the final issue of The Death of Wolverines. That's issue number 4, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what comes next, and that's the Logan Legacy, number 1. This is written by Charles Soule, who also wrote the Death of Wolverine miniseries. Now, he's only writing the first issue, I believe, and then handing it off to a number of different writers, and each succeeding issue, I think that it's a total of 5, will focus on a different member of Wolverine's family, which somehow includes Sabretooth.
Almost none of which are actually related to
Yes, only one, and one's a clone. But you know what? I expected nothing out of this book. I expected to hate it, actually. I viewed it as a money grab from Marvel. Hey, we're doing this Death of Wolverine series, and now we're going to throw out all these other Logan-related miniseries. But it was really good. It made sense. And I think Soule did a really good job of setting up where the series is going next. I mean, he did it very clear, and editorial did too, because the characters will be talking about something that we haven't seen yet, and then there's an editor's note, look for the Logan Legacy issue number 2 for this story. So each succeeding issue will focus on one character and their story as it relates to the death of Wolverine and Dr. Cornelius and all kinds of stuff. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't care about most of these characters on their own, but when they're drawn together and talking about Wolverine and even somebody like Sabretooth, who I don't think any writer since Chris Claremont has really nailed down. He's a good guy. He's a bad guy. He's a businessman. He's a feral monster. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Sabretooth, but he's there. And Daken. I'm going to go with Daken.
I will say Daken.
I'm going to go with Daken because of the rock band Daken is D-O and not D-A. Lady Deathstrike and I don't know. Lady Deathstrike and X-23. And there's someone else in there too, but I'm not going to spoil it. So anyway, Logan Legacy gets a big thumbs up from me and was pleasantly surprised.
And one of the other big things going on in Marvel right now is Axis. And this week's issue of Loki, Agent of Asgard, ties into it. Issue number 7, still written by Al Ewing. Al?
Yep.
Oh, I got it right.
JR.
And with art by Colejo. And this is picks up right from the end of the previous issue where we saw Loki being trapped in a time sphere or a time platform by Doom. And this is the story of what happens next. And I really loved the first arc of Loki Agents of Asgard, and I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about it after all the tumult of Original Sin and the coming out with the other series, the Angela stuff and the other Thor. But it's still really good. It's got a great feel. It's kind of modern and clean feeling, but it also gets a lot of great time, especially in this issue, because you've got Doom running around being Doom and making speeches and saying things. And if you've been reading FF, you know that Valeria, the youngest of the Richards kids, is living with Uncle Doom right now because she's mad at her parents. Because that's what you let a 3-year-old do, is go live with a genocidal maniac.
She's how old? 3?
I think it wasn't this book, but another book this week, they said she was 3.
She's like 12.
She's like a genius. I don't know.
She's not 3.
I believe something.
And that, ladies and gentlemen,
I could have imagined
is why the Fantastic Four books will be canceled, and they need to get their stuff together as far as the Fantastic Four. But anyway.
But this, we have Loki is teaming up with Verity Wilson, Verity Williams, whatever Verity, the chick that was introduced in the first arc,
Remo Williams,
who can see she can. No one can lie to her. She always knows what the truth is when people are talking to her. And the interplay between her and Valeria and Doom. And a little bit of Loki, and then later in the issue, tying into the big stuff going on with Axis, we see some other bad guys and their effects on Latveria, and it was just so much fun. I haven't had a tie-in book that was so blatant. Like, it's totally, oh, Axis is coming. But it was just fun, it was really well handled, and I thought it was a good time.
Yeah, Loki, Agent of Asgard, is one of the underrated gems of the Marvel Universe right now. And you're right, I mean, I've forgotten about it. It's only 7 issues in, but I'm glad you're reading it. Next up for me is Edge of Spiderverse number 5. This is written by My Chemical Romance's Gerard Way.
Gerard Way, formerly of
the Black Parade, who is a comic book geek and idolizes Grant Morrison, which made me very afraid to read this book. But I read it because Edge of Spiderverse has been incredibly cool. And each issue of this has kind of been a what-if. We're being introduced to the Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, Spider-Girl, Spider-Dog of various parallel worlds. And in this story, it's very much a Asian mech giant robot sort of world that we're introduced to. And there's a young girl named Penny who, she looks like she's like 12 years old or 10 years old. I don't know.
They gave her age at the beginning, and then it jumped ahead like 5 years.
5 years, so she's maybe 11 or 12. But her role as Spider-Woman, Spider-Thing, the Spider. It's like Spider with like the backslashes. She's in a mech suit, but she also has some connection to a spider that's always on her wrist or something.
Right.
So the bottom line with this is, much like the Logan Legacy, I was very pleasantly surprised by Edge of Spider-Verse number 5. And if you've been reading the previous issues, there is no reason not to pick up this issue. Some cool stuff happens toward the end. Spider-Ham shows up, as well as another Spider-Man. So the different spiders of the different verses are kind of reaching out to all of them and warning them that someone is hunting them and killing them, and they have to band together. So, really good stuff. Edge of Spider-Verse number 5. It's almost not worth talking about each issue. I don't want to say that because, eventually, I think this is the last issue, so this leads into Spider-Verse and Amazing Spider-Man number 9. But anyway.
Yeah, Spider-Verse is awesome, and I really liked Daredevil in this.
Oh, yeah, I meant to say that.
Because Spider-Man, I mean, it's a Asian girl in a suit with a spider, and it's so different, and then Daredevil's basically Daredevil.
Well, we don't know that. I mean, he looks like
there's
Daredevil.
nothing.
He's wearing a suit, and it took me a second. I'm like, is that Daredevil?
Yeah.
And then they have a conversation because in this one, Peter Parker is her father and was the city's spider and dies in the line of duty. And she asks about, you knew my father, what was he like, that sort of thing. So it was done very well. And based on my experience with Gerard Way, with the Umbrella Academy and the Fabulous Killjoys, those just didn't work for me, but this one absolutely did.
My next pick this week is Batman and Robin 35, continuing the Robin Rises series. Pete Tomasi rating, and Patrick Gleason drawing. And Gray. Is that Justin Gray? No, he's a writer. It doesn't matter. So this continues the story of Batman has basically said screw you to everyone who loves him and is running off to Apocalypse to try and save Damian's corpse and some magic funky gem. Which is fine. And we do get some more headway on that. But the part that I really loved is the Bat family. Before Bruce goes, this is 2 issues ago, I think, but he basically draws together Jason and Barbara and Tim and says, I need you to look after Gotham. I'm going to be gone. I might not come back. Take care of stuff. And they're like, okay, we'll do it, Batman. And then right after he's left in this issue, they get back to the Alfred and they're like, so we're totally not letting them do this. We're going to go after him and save him. And it was just very cool, nice Bat family vibe. But they're kind of jerks. They basically mind rape Cyborg so they can steal his mother box. And then he wakes up and he's kind of cool with it. He's like, it's all right. Let's just get through this. And it was just very fun and irreverent. And Alfred's in here. And the cow, Bat Cow, makes a brief appearance, which is what you want to have in every comic book if possible. So Robin Rises, yes. Batman and Robin has been incredibly consistent since the beginning of the New 52, and it's still worth your time.
All right, so there were several things that could have filled the third spot in my list, but I talk about them all the time, and they're far along in their runs. The 2 that spring to mind are Ms. Marvel and Miles Morales' Ultimate Spider-Man, both of which I think are in issue number 7 this week. And they're just incredibly strong books. But rather than do that, I will take my allotted time and tell you about 2 trades that you need to pick up this week that just came out. One of them happens to be Ms. Marvel Volume 1. This is by G. Willow Wilson and Adriana Alfano. Alfana? The Runaways artist.
That ends in an A, yeah, I think.
So, if you're not reading this book, why? Why are you not reading this book? Kamala Khan has turned out to be one of the most popular new young characters in the Marvel Universe, even for older white guys like me. It's just such a good character, good storytelling, very much a Peter Parker-esque type character when he was her age. You don't have a lot of teenage... You have some, but obviously most of the characters that we see in mainstream Marvel and DC books are between 20 and 35, and they stay that way forever.
And a lot of the younger ones are legacies.
Yeah.
And as much as I love Bucky as Captain America or whatever, a new version, another Robin is not really the solution to a new character. This is new, completely new. She has her powers from the Terrigen Mist that were spilled out into New York City during Infinity. The Inhumans are involved. She's just a very cool character, and this is one that we're planning on recommending to anybody that comes in during the holiday season looking for a comic for their teenage boy or girl. It's appropriate, it's exciting, it's engaging, and Ms. Marvel Volume 1 should be a perennial bestseller for any comic book shop, as long as the series is in print. All right, the other one that comes out this week is Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1 by Dan Slott and Humberto Ramos, and this is the return of Peter Parker as the one true Spider-Man. So if you were away from away from Superior Spider-Man because Doc Ock left a bad taste in your mouth and you couldn't read a comic or a Spider-Man series where Doc Ock was Spider-Man, come on back, pick up Volume 1, jump back into the swing of things here, because Dan Slott is still telling a heck of a story. And this Spider-Verse thing is not that has anything to do with Volume 1, but jump in with Volume 1 and hit the ground running and keep going. But well, it certainly does. I mean, I would argue that Spider-Verse is set up.
That's right, because
even in this first arc.
Yes, there are characters that are introduced. And again, I don't know if it's Dan Slott or, Christos Gage is actually writing a lot of this stuff. Slott is scripting it and Christos Gage is writing it. But
Slott is plotting it and Christos
I don't
Gage
know.
is scripting it.
Maybe you can answer this question. And maybe it's just me, or if it's both of us, then there's a trend. But these characters the supporting cast that Dan Slott has introduced in Spider-Man is among the best of supporting cast that I can think of in comics. And they're characters that have caught on very quickly with readers, although I don't know where Carly is. We haven't seen Carly in a while.
Well, no, because she got all gunked up on goblin venom, and then she went off to get better.
Oh.
So I don't know.
So that means she went to the Betty Ford clinic?
Wherever you go and you get goblin venom.
So you've got all these different characters that Dan Slott has introduced, and they're just really, really strong. So Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1 is also available. Ms. Marvel Volume 1, you cannot go wrong with either one. Pick them both up, pick one up, get one this week, one next week, put them on your Christmas list, tell your Aunt Harriet that you want it, and that's my 2 cents.
And my pick of the week this week is Justice League number 35, written by Jeff Johns with art by Doug Mahnke. And the big hullabaloo in Justice League has been that Lex Luthor joined the team at the end of Original Sin. I'm sorry, at the end of Forever Evil. And that's basically what they're still working through. And the last couple issues have focused specifically on the relationship between Luthor and Batman. And both as superheroes and as individuals, as Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor. And it's just incredibly good interplay. There aren't a lot of people that can kind of stay on the mental level with Batman, and Luthor is one of them. And watching them go back and forth and play with each other is great. Also, some really poignant stuff with Luthor's... Basically, Luthor has agreed to make a deal with Wayne Corp, so he's letting Bruce go through parts of his stuff, his secret base and labs and stuff at LexCorp. And some of the stuff in there is very cool and poignant, and we get some nice references to rebuilding Gotham and rebuilding Metropolis. And then, of course, if you can see the cover there, something bad's going to happen. Bad things.
Somebody has
everywhere.
bad gas in Metropolis.
Yes, but this book just made me love Batman. Not that I didn't love Batman to start with. But
Justice League for me has been firing on all cylinders for quite a while. I mean, I liked the Justice crossover, Justice League Dark and Justice League United and Justice League. The Crime Syndicate storyline was pretty good. Yeah. And now we've got Luthor joining the Justice League in the past. I think it's 3 issues, maybe 4. Just really good. Jeff Johns is really bringing his A game to Justice League. And he has for most of the series. One of the most consistently good New 52 books.
Absolutely.
All right, before we get to our top 5 of this list, I have to read a little viewer mail.
Oh, good.
This is actually, someone emailed us rather than leaving a comment in the comment section. And I wanted to take a second and read it. And it says, "Hello, mates. I just wanted to email you a sincere thank you and pat on the back for the work you do on your YouTube series. I am a comic book noob, and your weekly videos have responsibly navigated me through an otherwise overwhelmingly world to dip one's toes into initially. Your weekly videos are compulsory watching while munching my cornflakes in the morning, and your top 5s are also great and a perfect starting point. I'm working my way through all of your Batman picks, and year 1 is already one of my favorites. So thank you, gents. I'm writing this because I realized how much I missed last week's when it didn't materialize, and I got worried that you were stopping them. But alas, there was some drama involved, and I hope that everyone involved in the car crash is okay. Obviously, everyone is. All the best, chaps, Kareem." And Kareem is from the UK. And, I love getting stuff like this. Yeah. Kareem actually offered to buy some trades from us. He doesn't collect statues and figures, which is primarily what we sell on the website. Wanted to, give back, and, just sending this email is giving back enough. Yeah. We're not doing this to necessarily, make a profit on something. We just love comics, and we want to share that love with you and kind of direct people towards the good stuff that's in comics. And as Kareem said, it can be overwhelming, especially for a new reader, to look at everything that's out there and have to figure out where to start and what to choose. And that's where we come in. So thanks, Kareem, for your note. We appreciate it. If anyone else wants to send us notes, feel free, or leave comments below. And if we start getting them on a regular basis, we'll have a viewer of the week. This week it's Kareem.
You can slip it into our locker after gym class.
Yes. All right, top 5. We're going to do our top 5 horror comic stories.
Horror comics. Unless you want to include movies and novels.
No.
Horror comics.
We want to do horror comics. All right. I got to go with Locke Key right out of the gate. Locke Key is
laying it all out there.
Yeah, it's great. It's great for new readers. It's great for seasoned readers. It's got a definite beginning, middle, and end. It's over and done with now. 6 volumes published by IDW about a family that is stricken by tragedy. They move back to the family's ancestral home, which we've talked about this many times before. So, folks, you've heard this many times. The kids discover a bunch of different keys that have different powers, and only kids can find the keys and use the keys and experience that stuff. And there's an evil force that's involved that's trying to basically open the gateway to hell. It's very much a hellmouth. Key House is a hellmouth. Just great characters, great new series. I would have loved to see the TV series that Fox had actually shot the pilot for and then got cold feet and felt it was too similar to something else. Or they could only spend money on one big budget show and they chose the one about dinosaurs going back in time, which was not a bad show, but that show got canceled. So supposedly the Locke Key film is in development, but don't wait for the movie. Check out the comics. Written by Joe Hill, I should say, a.k.a. son of Stephen King, and artwork by Gabriel Rodriguez, and Rodriguez's artwork is top-notch.
I'm going to go with Hellblazer. The Constantine series ran for 20-some-odd years. Specifically, the arc I'm thinking of is it's during Mike Carey's run. I want to say it's called The Gift, but don't quote me on that. Basically, John's gotten himself into another position where stupidness is happening. He's in big trouble with a bunch of demons. He gets out of it. Yes. Kurt Russell's there. Egg Shen. And he gets out of it by selling 3 days of his life to the demon. I think it's Nurgle. And so he's like, it's an eternity in damnation, or you give him 3 days. So he takes the lesser of the two evils, he thinks, at the time, and trades it to him. And Nurgle's like, well, I'll take them later. We'll talk about it. And so it turns out Nurgle takes these 3 days once at a time, and it's only a day in reality, but he's manipulating time so that each of these days is an entire life that John lives, and each one he lives with a different woman, and they have different children. And when he comes out of this whole thing and realizes that it was all jacked up, he finds out that each of these women were daughters of Nurgle, demonesses or succubi, and he's impregnated them. So now he has these demonic children running around in hell. And him dealing with getting to hell and the children and the mothers and the whole pact is incredibly poignant, but it's also terrifying as all get out. And I really love just the whole book has this pervasive, creepy vibe that really is sort of the trademark of Hellblazer. And Mike Carey's awesome.
Very timely with the Constantine series hitting TVs on the 24th of October. All right. I think that we would get grief from many people if we left this one out, even though neither Josh nor I are big fans, but I'm going to go with The Walking Dead. I think that, these days, there's still lots of people who've never read Walking Dead comics, and a lot of those that enjoy the TV show have still never read a Walking Dead comic, but the comic is where everything started, with the exception of Daryl Dixon, who only appears in the TV show.
So far, he could show up.
He could show up. And you know what? I don't know. I was fortunate enough to attend a breakfast that Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead, held for retailers, and probably about 40 of us there, 40 or 50 of us. But they were talking about, what can he do, and what can his company Skybound do to help retailers? And he said, besides introduce Daryl in the comics. So who knows? That could happen someday. But anyway, The Walking Dead was under a lot of people's radar for a long time. I mean, the series started back in 2003. And now is just a juggernaut of a show. The season, whatever we're on, season 5 premiere, broke all kinds of records again. New York Comic Con, they had a Walking Dead panel, and it was insane. The longest lines for a comic creator were Robert Kirkman's lines. It is, and he is an incredibly nice guy. This has nothing to do with talking about The Walking Dead, but it is a phenomenon. It really is. And it started as one guy's vision. Well, throw Tony Moore in there for the first 6 issues and Charlie Adler for the rest. And it's his. He controls everything. It's not a company-owned book. It's not, a licensed property. It is Robert Kirkman telling the story he wants to tell in black and white, and reaping the benefits of it and staying a very grounded and approachable, down-to-earth guy. So Walking Dead is a great comic book series if you're into the zombies and the undead, and survivalist stories, and just great character moments. And if you are watching the show and you've still never picked up the comic, get out there to your local comic shop and pick up Volume 1. I can count on one hand the number of people who picked up Volume 1 and haven't gotten hooked and come back and read all of them. And they're similar. There are lots of similarities, especially in the first volume, but it's different enough that you can enjoy the comics and the show independently. So Walking Dead, number 3 on our top 5 list of horror comics.
Sorry.
No,
we didn't work this out in advance. I just don't want to...
We never do this. You say whatever you want. I'll come up with something else.
Yeah,
do it.
I'm going to go with Severed. Written by Scott Snyder, drawn by... Do you remember who drew it?
Nope.
Somebody else drew it. And it is by far the creepiest comic book I've ever read. And that's not to say that there isn't blood and gore and stuff, because there's a fair amount of that. Not a lot, but especially late in the story, there's definitely some slasher kind of stuff. But the entire book has this tone. It's basically a story about some kids riding the rails to get away from their responsibilities and look for his missing father during the Great Depression. Great Depression, right? It was the 20s, 30s, something like that. And the whole book has just this feel of dread, and you're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. And you see all these horrible things happen. And it's also a really cool look at that era in American history. It has a great feel to it. And just, there's something about the way Snyder puts these kids in almost danger that just destroys me every time I read it.
Oh, yeah. No, it's really good. And Severed, again, I think is an kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Underrated?
It's underrated and overlooked by a lot of people because it was published probably about 2 years ago, before Scott Snyder was kind of at the level where he is now with his Batman stuff. And it's a self-contained story published by Image Comics.
Done in one?
Yeah, done in one. All right, so this puts me in the position to either go with another Scott Snyder book or go with, you know what? I'm going to go in a different direction and go with Hack Slash.
Over there.
I'm going to go with Hack Slash by Tim Seeley.
Okay.
With honorable mentions for American Vampire and actually for Outcast as well. I think, even though we're 4 issues in on Outcast, I think it's a really creepy, good story from Robert Kirkman. Yeah. But Hack Slash is about a young girl named Cassie Hack, who is the sole survivor of a serial killer's rampage. The lunch lady, and if I'm not mistaken, the lunch lady was her mother. Is that right?
Her mother was a serial killer, so I think it was the lunch lady, yes.
Yes. And it's just super cool. It's imagine Buffy Summers, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like taken up about 10 notches. And Cassie takes on a bunch of creepy, scary stuff, and she makes it her mission in life to go out and take on... Oh, you know what I forgot? Oh, never mind. Nailbiter gets an honorable mention, too. Our top 20 list of horror comics by two guys that don't like horror. Cassie goes out and takes on a bunch of serial killers to protect the innocent, to basically give them their lives back the way her life was kind of stolen by the serial killer. And one of the coolest parts about it is she has this sidekick that she picks up along the way named Vlad, who's very much a Frankenstein's monster kind of Lenny. Is it Lenny? Who is the slow one
Lemmy.
Of Mice and Men?
Lemmy?
Not Lemmy. It was Lenny.
Oh, okay.
Lemmy's from Motorhead.
Oh, okay.
What is wrong with you? If you've never checked out Hack Slash, you should. It's available in multiple formats. You've got single trade paperbacks. You've got omnibus editions, which collect a whole bunch of stuff. There were crossovers with other horror properties, including Child's Play and Reanimator. So it's perfect for horror fans, but as I mentioned a few moments ago, neither one of us really like horror movies. I mean, I like traditional stuff like Halloween, and that's about it.
Doesn't have a cast or keyboard.
Big
I
on
don't
the
watch
horror
it.
movies. I like psychological horror more than I like in-your-face gore horror, so that kind of gives you a direction of why we chose the books that we chose. There are other things out there like Crossed and crazy, weird, and if you like it, that's fine, but just crazy, messed up stuff, and this is more mainstream, I think, easily digestible by the average person. So...
No, and what I really like about Hack Slash, and you kind of hit on it a little bit with comparing it to Buffy, is that it's very self-aware. I mean, it's aware of all the horror trope genres. She's seen these movies in the universe, so it's very fun. Fun murdering and blood-covered people.
No, it's got a sense of humor about it,
yeah.
which is nice. But it's action-packed, and the artwork is great, and the characters that she ends up running into are just crazy and fun, and it's good stuff.
Yeah. And if you're going to throw in 9 honorable mentions, I'm going to throw one too.
I said 3.
Whatever.
Okay.
I'm going to throw in Sandman by Neil Gaiman. The series is referred to as horror, but it's not. But in the first arc, there's a storyline with Dr. Destiny where he uses Sandman's gem. No, Dr. Destiny, the Justice League villain.
Okay.
He uses Sandman's gem to mind control people. It was the most horrific thing I have ever read in a comic at the time.
Wow.
Like, it was the diner, and it's... Yeah, it was...
Don't spoil it.
It was out there. So if you like dark horror, maybe check that out.
Well, there you go. What would you recommend? Throw those in the comments below. Share your knowledge. Because we're all here because we love comics, and let's just recommend some good stuff. So leave comments, share it with your friends, share it in social media. God willing, we'll be back next week for another action-packed episode. And who knows what we'll talk about. But before we go, I do want to mention, especially if you're local, Halloween Comic Fest. That needs a better name. It's a national event happening on Saturday, October 25th. We will be participating here at Alter Ego Comics with free Halloween-themed comics and just free comics for readers of all ages. Mark Miller, Lima native, who wrote the book Pirouette that we talked about last week, will be here signing copies of that. We've got a zombie walk. We've got a spooky pooch parade, a costume contest. Other downtown businesses are doing activities and giving away candy and all kinds of stuff. Check out Nitz's window display, by the way. It is phenomenal. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet.
I posted pictures on Facebook last night, but you should just walk up the street and take a look. So all kinds of cool stuff happening in downtown Lima on Saturday, October 25th from 12 until 4, and we hope to see you as part of it. If you're not local, them's the breaks. See you next time.